Hey, welcome back. It's Mississippi Stories. I'm your host, Marshall Ramsey. Happy New Year. It's hard to believe it's 2023. It seems like just yesterday we started doing these, and it was during the pandemic. Oh, yeah. Remember that thing that, has kind of had us going for about 3 years now. But we're kind of coming out of it a little bit, and I think things are getting better, and I'm ready for a great new year, and I know you are too. That is why I brought our guest on today. She's one of my favorite people, one of the favorite past guests, and I thought she would be perfect to talk to as we started off this new year. So I'm really excited to have Dr. Alyssa Killebrew on with us. You remember her a little bit. There will be a link in the bottom, by the way, of the previous interview, so you can catch up on her incredible life as well. And we'll touch on some of the points too. Anyway, she knows a little bit about resiliency, and we'll touch on that too. But she also is a licensed clinical psychologist, a licensed professional counselor, a licensed professional counselor supervisor. You're licensed in a lot. You bet you're a licensed driver too, aren't you? Yes.
Yes.
Licensed to kill, right? You got that also. So
Last time I checked, yes.
okay, just chat. So I won't mess with you too bad today. You started Killebrew Psychological Services. It's hard to believe it now. It's been, oh Lord, 7 years almost. That went by in a blink, didn't it?
Went by in a blink. I
Yeah.
started out on Fortification Street and moved over to West Jackson Street that next year.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen your office. You're right there in Ridgeland, in that new section of buildings that they've built. So pretty fancy stuff. A lot of your artwork is behind you too, by the way, which we'll probably get into a little bit as well. Hey, but thanks. We got a lot of things to cover today. Of course, have you got all your New Year's resolutions done for this year?
I feel like this year is going to be the best year yet. Honestly, I have a whole lot of hope, but really my New Year's resolution is to be a really good mom. I have been given the gift of being a parent, and I'm so grateful to have my little girl and little boy, and I hope that I can be a good model for them. That's really my New Year's resolution, is to be a good parent.
Yeah, and being a good parent, and I'm a little ahead of you on that. I'm not sure I'm a good parent, but I am a parent, and I've got 3 amazing boys. But a big part of being a good parent is what they watch you doing, and I would think that you are a very good role model in that sense too, because you've been dealt some punches in life. You really have. And I mean, you're very open about it. You talked very openly the last time we talked about some of the challenges you faced. You lost the baby due to COVID. You lost your very beloved, precious husband, Keath, who's just absolutely was a rock star. Hell, I have a crush on Keath. I mean, he's a great guy. He really is. I mean, I couldn't think of any more perfect human being. And for you to take 2 body blows like that, and yet here you are talking to me with a big old smile on your face. But I think that's why I like talking to you right now. Yeah. That's why I like talking to you right now, because I feel like everybody's lost something over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And what I've realized is not going to get out of here alive. And so, we have to figure out the kind of life that we want to live with the time that we have. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow or if I'll be here till I'm worrying my kids to death when I'm 99 and a half, like my grandmother did. But I am going to try to the best of my ability to surround myself with positive people like yourself that can laugh about the hard things. And that not only laugh, but are willing to go to those hard places and talk about those hard things, just like you do all the time. You're so open about your life and your past. And I really respect and admire people like you that can do that.
Oh, I know, but it gets boring after a while. So I try not to do it as much as I do. But you have a very good point about the laughter part of it, because when I was diagnosed with melanoma a long time ago, I'm still here. Everything's good, right? But 3 doctors missed it, and that freaked me out. Melanoma's not something you want your doctor to miss, because it'll kill you very quickly. And I got anxiety, and as you could imagine, when your skin tries to kill you. And so my family took me on a vacation. They took me to Florida, to the beach, which I had the most fatal, dangerous form of skin cancer, and they took me to the beach. I was like, I don't know how to unpack that. I said, why don't you just buy a gun, Dad? It would be cheaper, but than a condo. But I remember going swimming, and a lady was staring at my scar, and I had like a 6-inch scar on my back. and she's looking at me like I'm a freak. And I got pretty sensitive about it. And look, I don't have a long history of women looking at me, so it's not, something I was used to. And
Oh,
I pointed at it and I said, it was a shark attack, and it happened right where your girls are swimming. And she ran out of the water with her kids. It was amazing.
your sense of humor. I gravitate towards people that can make me just belly laugh. And that's what Keath always could do for me. And I just love that you have such a great sense of humor, because life is tragic,
Yeah,
but it's beautiful. It's beautiful too. And we
it
have
is.
to be able to balance both of those,
Yeah. How do you do
so
that? How do you do that? Seriously. I mean, I've always heard that it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. And I buy into that. But when you're getting beat down and you're getting that beat down and you're on your knees, how do you find the beauty in the world?
you keep getting back up. It's the most important thing you can do in your life is you don't stay down. You
Yeah.
have to get back up. And that is truly one of the things that our animal species teach us.
Yeah.
I love how we can learn from a baby giraffe. It drops 10 feet from its mother's womb. And what does she do? She kicks it over and over again to teach it how to keep standing back up, because it's a mean world out there and there are
Yeah.
lions everywhere. So, we have to show our children that you have to keep getting back up when you get knocked down, and life is not fair. It's not.
No, no. I mean, like I said, that firsthand, definitely. When
Yes.
when you got knocked down on your knees, literally, let me go way back to the beginning. When you were little, when you were a kid, when you were a teenager, were you this resilient? Did you have this attitude, or is this something that just time has taught you? And I mean, I didn't know if it was a nature or nurture thing with you to be able to have, because I'm like I said, you're probably one of the most resilient people I've ever met. I've met a lot of resilient people.
Thank you, Marshall. That means a whole lot to me. I appreciate that. You met a lot of people, so thank you. I when I was a little girl, my mother had cancer and she got beat up pretty bad. I watched her 3 different bouts of chemotherapy and radiation, and I watched what she did. I learned it at her feet. She meditated. My mom started to really, really focus on the things that were most important. And
Yeah.
she and my grandmother were my greatest teachers. I was not resilient when I was young. I pretty much was handed a silver spoon, and life has beat me up.
Yeah.
It wasn't always present as a young child, but I watched my mom do very simple things like sleep 8 hours. She would spend time out in nature. She started eating healthy. She believes her colon cancer came from just not eating great.
Yeah.
She loved to eat steaks, and they were cooked on charcoal grills back then. And, so she started eating really healthy, taking supplements. And one of the things that I love the most that she did is she had a room that was pitch black dark, and she would go in there and meditate.
Mm.
And I found that meditation, when I get really still and really quiet and stop the drunk monkey upstairs, I'm able to get still and quiet enough to hear the voice of God. And I'm a strong Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this whole time I've been carried, and that this is just my life assignment. I think I told you that he trusts me enough to allow me to go through all these things, but he's not going to drop me on my head. I believe that with all my heart. The first day that I got the news that my husband's plane had crashed, I had 3 really strong, solid women that showed up. My
Yeah.
sister,
Mm-hmm.
she came and drove me to the hospital because I was pregnant at the time and my blood pressure shot up. And she has not left my side that whole time.
Mm.
She's 10 years older than me, and she's my big sis that's, sort of like a parent more or less to me. And then my precious husband's Aunt Linda has moved in with me. She literally showed up and didn't leave.
That's
And
amazing.
so I'm currently building her a little a little cabin off to the side of my house. I live out on Lake Castle, and so she can look at the water when she wakes up, and she's here helping me raise my children, which is an absolutely incredible gift that I didn't ask for. I'm just so grateful that this has happened. These strong people have just shown up. I think your village is key, really having a good, solid group of people that you can count on and trust. And for that, I'm forever grateful.
I think that was one of the things which, by the way, that's amazing that she's done that for you. I mean, but that, like I said, I'm not terribly surprised. You seem to have a close family and a strong family, and so, but going back to the village, and I think, a lot of people are still struggling, I think, from the effects of what we've been through the last 3 years. The pandemic was hard. People lost, whether it was their job, or they may have lost even a chance to go to the bar with a friend or go to a concert, or they lost a loved one, or in your case, you lost a child. Everybody has suffered a degree of trauma from this. And for me, one of the biggest things that I've noticed that really got to me was I was just not around people. And I didn't realize how much we need each other. We need that human connection. Although I do like Pip, my dog. She's asleep right here on the floor. I gave her medication before we started so that she would sleep. No, she's hopefully doesn't bark. I do get texts from her throughout the day asking if I'm not here, asking where I am. But as we're coming out of that, what are some things that people can do if they're still feeling like that they're missing something, that they still, because I mean, I sense like a low grade depression with a lot of folks, that they're almost yelling at each other online just to feel better.
Yeah, agreed. And, I know which president said this, but I'll never forget it, that a house divided against itself can't stand.
Yeah.
If we are divided against each other in our households, then our households aren't very strong. We have to learn how to communicate and embrace different opinions instead of
You're wrong. Oh, sorry. Couldn't resist on that one.
Each other villains, we can learn from each other, be interested in a person that has a different opinion than you do. We can disagree, but still be respectful. And that is really, really important. You're right. Our world has gotten so polarized. And if we could all get on one team, it'd be unbelievable what we could accomplish.
You mentioned your resolutions to be a better parent. And frankly, I think that's probably mine too, just being a better person. But right now, obviously, we're a couple weeks into January because I didn't get around to doing this video sooner, of course. But what advice for people for goal setting? Because I think goal setting can be overwhelming. It can be almost like, how do you eat the elephant? Because people think they've got to eat the whole elephant right at once. But, obviously one bite at a time is at that. But what advice would you give for people for 2023 for setting down goals? What types of goals, and how do you structure them so you actually can achieve them?
Okay, great. Well, we're coming up on Martin Luther King Day, and I believe he said that we can do great small things.
Yeah.
And doing those little small things every day. So if you have a big goal, a long-term big goal, then set out every day to do 3 things that move in the direction of the goal. Because time is going to pass anyway. Right. So we might as well be doing things that are moving in the direction of those goals.
Yeah, that's a good thing about getting older and time going by quicker, because it takes less time now for me to get in shape, because it used to take forever. But now that time goes by so quickly, it's like, oh, that seemed like that didn't take long at all. So,
I've just started exercising after I had the baby, and I have so much more energy, Marshall. I go 3 times a week to something called Burn Boot Camp, and I love it. I just love it. It's a bunch of women that like give each other high fives, and they're just positive, and I just really, really love having a place that I can go where people are all in it to get fit.
Yeah, I think the beauty of that type of workout is the fact that you're all suffering together. And so you build community. And the thing I think I learned from, and I didn't do that particular boot camp, mind you, but I think the thing I learned from it was learning how to focus on what you're doing at the moment and not worrying about what the next station is. And that seems
Right.
to pretty handy for life too. But congratulations, because you have two very young children. You need every bit of energy that you can get.
I absolutely do. I've got a 4-year-old daughter, Vivian, and I have a little boy that I named after his daddy.
Yeah.
And his name is Keath Jr. He just turned 1. He's in the room next door, and I can hear him in there just squealing.
Oh, really?
His first word was wow.
Wow. Okay. That's impressive. Yeah. You're in trouble.
I'm in big trouble.
He is going to be an adventure, but what chance did he have? Right. So,
Right.
uh, you do a lot of artwork and you obviously do that. Is that a therapy thing for you, or just did you just enjoy it? I mean, I enjoy it because I enjoy painting more than I do drawing, because painting, I actually get into flow, and I don't get into flow for drawings work. Painting is flow. You're painting, and I would say you just showed me one earlier before we started. Your painting is, it's been fun to watch the progression as you get better and better on that. But do you find it to be good therapy, or you just do it just because you do it?
Absolutely. I am currently designing some stained glass windows over at
Yeah.
Pearl River Glass Studio. And they are going to be basically sum up my life with Keath.
Yeah.
We're going to write something to the effect of one tilled fields, one tend souls. Their life together was a beautiful garden. And it's a picture of Keath in the cotton, and it's a picture of me on the other side, sunflowers. And I just think that, a real good sign that a patient is getting better in their life is when they start to create.
Yeah.
And, when I am not creating, it's usually a time where I'm just in a season of real darkness and sadness. And I've had many of those seasons. Thankfully, they've not gone on for long periods of time, but I have had them. And I find that when I get into doing something creative, I feel so much better. And so I've been able to do a painting. I'll show you here. This was a picture that I found on Keith's phone, and I went ahead and painted this because I know that he took that picture so that I would paint it for him. And so I went ahead and painted it, and it actually was some people from Paraguay that painted it, and I just copied it. So
what medium are you using? Acrylics, or what are you doing it in?
I like using acrylics because oils take years to actually dry. And if you stick your finger, this was an oil behind me.
Yeah.
And if I stick my finger too hard in it, I guarantee you it's still wet.
We live here. We live where it's very humid. It never does actually dry. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've always, and also too, oils, particularly the turpentine, when you clean your brushes, they smell. So it's just it's a very messy, nasty thing. And now I've gotten so lazy, I do it digitally. So I don't even have anything to wash anymore. It's great. But your artwork's beautiful. And like I said, there is a therapeutic aspect to it. Let me ask you this about mental health, and you're obviously on the front lines of it. You see a lot of patients. Congratulations. I saw the other day, it came up on my Facebook feed. There was somebody who was just praising you and praising, the help that they're getting from you and everything else. And I know that's incredibly rewarding, being able to sit down and helping people unlock. How important is it for people to understand how they're wired before they can actually find realistic solutions to whatever problems that they deal with?
It is, to understand thyself, I think, is better than any amount of money you can have.
Yeah.
And there are very specific tests that we're able to provide to our patients. I was a counselor for many years. I worked in Greenwood at a regional mental health center.
Oh, wow.
And just felt, Marshall, like I wasn't able to really give the patients what they needed. So I sat down with Dr. Mike Whalen one day, and I said, I love what you do. Can you teach me how to do this? And he said, well, you got to go back to school. He said there are very few psychologists in Mississippi. He said it's not for the faint of heart. It'll take you a good 10 years to do it, but I think you should apply for school. And I had an LPC at the time. I was a counselor, but I just felt like something missing. Just sitting and talking about problems wasn't giving patients what they really needed. So the reason I went back to school is so I could learn how to diagnose. And so really what we do in the practice is we use this book here. This is the DSM-5, and there are very specific tests that we can provide that will tell us if a patient has a mental health condition. And if they do, there are evidence-based treatment protocols that can help them, because our goal is to work our way out of a job. It's not to keep someone in counseling forever.
Right.
We want to monitor, we want to know how severe the symptoms are if you do meet criteria for a mental health condition, and then we want to build a plan that your symptoms are decreasing over time. There are very few mental health conditions that have poor prognosis. Most prognosis is excellent if you intervene early and if you intervene, period. And so I've really built my practice on the testing model because I believe that we've got to figure out what's wrong with you before we can build a plan and know how to treat you.
Let me ask you this. And like I said, and I experienced this firsthand. My parents, when they got ill, obviously that was a very difficult situation. I was exhausted. I was traveling back and forth. My sisters and I had to deal with some issues. My dad had dementia. My mom had some issues that were difficult for her and for everybody. And I went to go see somebody, and I remember sitting in that waiting room the first time, hiding behind the potted plant because I didn't want anybody to see me in there, because I thought for some reason it was weak that I was going in to get help, which actually it was probably the strongest thing I could possibly do, because I wasn't doing it for myself. I was doing it for my family to try to stop, me going into this spiral. But how do we get past that? How do we get past that wanting to hide behind a plant thing? Because it's ridiculous that people can't relate mental health to health. It's all the same thing.
It's all the same thing. Absolutely. And this is helping with the stigma right here. Just having honest, open conversations. Part of becoming a psychologist, when I was in school, they said you have to go and get therapy to be a therapist. And so on and off all my life, I've had mentors who were either a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a licensed professional counselor. My mentor is 80 old, and she is a Jung analyst. She is a psychologist as well, and she raised 4 children on her own. And she comes to work today. She's truly my role model. She comes to work every single day, and she takes about 20 patients. She really sees a lot of the doctors and more professional people in the community, but I love her so much, and I continue to see her for tune-ups, whenever life is hard. I've had to see her over losing Keath just to help me walk through this. And nobody knows it better than she does, because she raised 4 children by herself.
What a wonderful, my mentor's 90. So, and he got, no, actually he's 92. He just had a birthday. He didn't skip a year, but a lot of us did during the pandemic, but he got laid off from his job at 90. So it was like, well, I was like, well, now you know how it feels. I told him that, but it's great because I can just pick up the phone and call him whenever I have a problem. And it's really great that you've got that kind of relationship as well.
Marshall, I think that's the key to living a long, healthy life, is to not just working, but working in an area that's your real passion.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
This is not work. This is passion. I love watching people who are in the most broken situations and watching them figure out solutions and getting to walk alongside of them. It's a great honor, to get to sit with people who have lost their loved ones, who have suffered some of the greatest traumas I can ever even imagine, and getting to watch them find solutions and come out of that. It's a gift.
As a
to
counselor,
me.
yeah, as a counselor, I was going to ask you this because as a counselor, you've walked that journey too. When somebody sits down to you and spells out something in their life that's so similar to yours, is that a helpful thing for you to be able to help them, or is that difficult for you to have to? It could be a triggering moment almost when you hear very
Sure.
similar type things. Is that something you feel like prepares you to be able to help them better?
Well, it helps me have not just sympathy. Sympathy is, I'm sorry for
Yeah,
what you went through. Empathy is, I get it because I've walked through it.
yeah,
I would not be able to sit with someone who lost their soulmate in a plane crash today. Now,
good
I
point.
do hope eventually I'll be able alongside them through that,
Yeah,
but I'm still working on it. If I'm triggered, that's what I have a mentor for, and that's what
yeah.
I go talk about.
Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into the brain and triggering and everything else. And a lot of times triggering is when you have something that happens to you that is very similar to the trauma that you experienced. Whatever in my experience, I think about what happened to me in my trauma. And when I get triggered, I kind of revert back to some of those coping skills I used as a kid, which don't work well when you're old. I will tell you that. But you can pull yourself out of that and kind of look around and get yourself out of that. When people are triggered, what is the best way for them to say, okay, wait a minute, how do they pull themselves back into and out of that triggering? And
Best
you can
thing to
bill
do,
me for this, by the way.
no,
No,
no.
I'm just kidding.
Best thing to do is to sit with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Somatically, we need to sit with it and figure out where we're feeling that in our body. Okay. Because
Yeah.
our bodies keep the score. You and I have talked about the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Great book.
Yeah, the best book
Yeah.
about trauma. And it really looks at all different types of trauma. But when you're triggered, you need to sit with the feelings and don't escape them, because the thing that keeps trauma alive is avoidance behaviors. And
Yeah.
avoidance behaviors are medicators. It can be that you go and drink, or you use some type of substance to run away from it. But the thing that helps with the treatment of trauma more than anything else is you can't avoid. You have to run to the things that scare you and sit with it long enough to teach your brain that that was then and that's not now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, complete sense. It's like you tack into the wind,
Exactly.
you go into it. And that's why, David Goggins is a former Navy SEAL, a very profane, crazy human being. And I probably shouldn't use the word crazy, but the point is he runs 200 miles at a time when his knees falling apart and everything else. He had childhood trauma that was off the charts. But I think literally he's running into his pain every single day, and he's figured out a way to defeat it that way. So what you're saying makes total sense. If you feel like you're about to shut down, that's when you need to get busy.
Let's talk a little bit about what childhood trauma is, because I
Sure.
have people ask me that all the time. And there is actually a scale. It's called the Adverse Childhood Experiences. And there's been lots and lots of research on ACEs, and ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And these are a few of them. I'm just going to read them out to you.
Okay.
Did you feel that you didn't have enough to eat? Did you feel that your clothes were dirty? Did you have someone that was there to protect and take care of you? Did you lose a parent from divorce, abandonment, or death? Did you live with anyone who was depressed or mentally ill when you were a child? Did you live with anyone who had a substance abuse problem or a prescription drug problem? Did your parent or adult hit, punch, kick, or harm each other? And then there's a question about, did your parent hit, punch, beat, or harm you? Did you live with anyone who went to jail? Did your parent or adult in your household swear at you, insult you, or put you down? Did you feel that you were loved and that you were special? That's a really important one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last is, did you experience an unwanted sexual contact? So if the more number, the higher the number of adverse childhood experiences, obviously the more likely it is that you're going to develop health issues and DSM-5 diagnoses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always said if you could take childhood trauma out of it, that book you held up would be about this thick. It wouldn't be very thick at all. It'd be very thick. And I think from what I understand about it is that you as a child, obviously your job is to be a child. So you end up feeling helpless, but a lot of times kids think it's their fault if their parent is struggling or they're suffering or there's been abuse or whatever, and they can't escape it because obviously even a divorce in their mind could be death, and because they think, oh my gosh, my family's going to go. So that can cause self-esteem problems. And down the road, it causes, cortisol issues. And that's so if you have a high ACE score, and I'm just from what I read in the book, if you have a high ACE score, that can cause health problems down the road as an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cardiovascular disease, autoimmune deficiencies, all those things for sure. But you pointed out that protective factors like having a champion in your corner can really, really help you in your life. That is incredibly important. And so the reasons that we created SEK, the camp for kids to deal with these
That's
traumas.
where we were going with this, because I looked at number one, SEK is coming up, and congratulations, because the last time we talked, you didn't know when you were going to have it, and it's going to be June 12th to June 16th this summer in Lawrence, Mississippi, which is a suburb of Newton, Mississippi. Right. If there is such a thing as a suburb of Newton as well on that, but it's great. And I looked at the schedule on it, and it's, from 6 in the morning, you keep pretty much there's programming from 6 in the morning early for a kid. That's pretty amazing, to about 7 o'clock at night. But a lot of it is very, like you talked about with you, what you enjoy doing with the meditation, what your mom did. There's a lot of meditation. There's a lot of calmness. There's no phones. There's a lot of art. And it sounds like what you're trying to do between June 12th and June 16th is to get their amygdala to stop and calm them down and just have them be able to be in the moment for a change instead of being afraid and being worried. Am I correct?
Exactly. You're exactly correct. And we want to keep them from doing avoidance behaviors. So we're going to take their phone.
Yeah, I saw that. That's torture, just to let you know.
I know. Oh, I realize. And look, I went and did one of these myself in a place called On Site.
Yeah.
And they take your phone up and you really feel like you're getting a divorce. I mean, it hurts to not have that complete accessibility to the outside world. It's a scary thing.
Well, no, it's like a huge source of dopamine also.
It is. It is. You've talked about that on a couple of your posts, and it's true. Getting a like, it feels good.
It does.
Somebody likes me. Or I get a love. That's even better.
I know it. Those people know what they're doing at those social media companies.
Do. Boy, do they. So at SEK, I want kids to get to try all different types of therapy, because talk therapy doesn't work for everybody. So we're introduce them to techniques like a psychodrama. We're going to introduce them to things like equine therapy. We're going to introduce them to art and music, and they're going to all be placed in a small group that's going to be sort of like their nuclear family for the week. But the most important piece is that we have to have parent involvement, because, the analogy, you think about it, if you have a goldfish, let's just say the child is a goldfish living in a family of goldfish in a bowl, and that goldfish bowl is real dirty. Okay, let's just say it's super dirty. You can't take the goldfish out, put him in clean water, and then put him back in the dirty water. We need the family to suit up and to be a part of the process, because it's very rare that I've seen a child that the child only one that has issues that need to be addressed. Right. Usually a whole family system that needs to be.
Well, and I mean, there a lot of the cases, and I mean, just from what I've studied over the years is that, there can be multi-generational trauma too. So it could be, I mean, that's why they wrote the book, The Children of Alcoholics, or whatever that book is, because, even though you hate that your parent's an alcoholic, there's a good chance you can become an alcoholic, because that trauma is down the road and you're trying to put that fire out. And so, yeah, you're trying to fix a system as much as you are trying to fix a person.
Absolutely. You get it. You really get it, Marshall. Yeah, that's true. That's the Adult Children of Alcoholics book that you're referring to. And it talks about the whole system, because codependency is just as much a part of addiction as the person that actually drinks or uses the drug.
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, because a lot of times you might end up with a person with an issue and then a codependent parent, and the codependent parents should be the champion, but they can't be because they're out of it. So get that as well. Yeah, I'm really excited about that. Like you said, it's at Tanglewood in Lawrence. What is it, like a farm, or is it a camp, or I've never been there?
So a gentleman who used to be over the food industry, I forget the name of it, but his name is Greg Shoemaker, and he created this place. And if you've been watching Yellowstone, when you walk in, it looks a lot like the Yellowstone building.
Oh, wow. There's no train station, is there?
No train station.
That's good to know. Just checking.
And there's no Beth. There's no Beth there.
Yeah, because that would cause trauma in its own right.
Absolutely.
Speaking of somebody who suffered from childhood trauma.
Oh, she's such a good example. I would love to get my hands on her character.
No, seriously, when you're you do what you do and you have all this knowledge about it and everything, and you sit there and watch Prince Harry doing all the things he's doing, or you watch Beth on there, or you watch other characters. Do you ever just catch yourself analyzing them while you're watching them?
All the time. All the time. I would, and I think, gosh, I wish I could teach them what my mentor taught me. It would be so, so helpful.
Yeah.
Especially Harry, bless his heart. He grew up watching, the media pretty much paparazzi kill his mother.
Yeah.
And, he's in a system that is just, it's such a hard place to be. I try not to make villains in life. One of the things that keeps me able to work in the prison system is that I try to listen to everybody's story and try to place myself there. And it doesn't matter how flat you make a pancake, it has two sides.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things that I learned just in my professional life is that you have to look at both sides before you can make any kind of judgment.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. I mean, like you said, he loved his mother. She died the way she did. So now he marries who he marries. She starts getting hounded by the press. Yeah. And then you have the combination, then you throw race in there, which that's an ugly thing as well. And then you've got William, his brother, who completely bought into the Queen Elizabeth, it's all about duty and all about that, and his poor dad who, suffered trauma. I mean, yeah, if you watch enough of The Crown, you realize, well, I completely see how it's going. And then, you realize he's being triggered and he reverts back to being a kid. So he writes a book that probably makes things 10 times worse.
Absolutely.
It's great.
Absolutely. And pushes his family away from him. And it's a lot of splitting behavior there that I see. And that's what we call it in the clinical world, is splitting. And everybody needs to be on the same team.
Yeah.
We know that teams can conquer the world when they're all in it together.
I think probably like Harry, I don't know if that'll ever be resolved. I think Beth, they probably will resolve it because she's a fictional character and they can do whatever they want to with her. But she is a very well-written character, I will say.
She is. She is fun. She is definitely an unhealthy 8 on the Enneagram.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. No doubt. But she's also a force of nature, and anybody can walk away from a bomb blast smoking a cigarette. You got to figure, but wouldn't it be fun to be like that in life, just to be able to, just go tell everybody off? I mean, come on, it would be fun for a day.
It would be fun for a day.
Tell folks how they can get and find out more about SEK, because like I said, I think the camp is a great idea. It's for kids, 13 to 17, if I remember correctly.
13 to 17. Yes. all you need to do is go to sekintensives.com and take a look at our website and see if it looks like something that your child would be interested in, you would be interested in as a family, and then I will meet with you. I will meet with you and your child to determine if you're a good fit for the
That's great.
camp.
That's great. And congratulations on that. I would say, and by the way, because I know you just had a graduation, prison graduation. I know that had to be an incredibly rewarding experience too.
Absolutely. We have built a program at Walnut Grove, and it is an alcohol and drug program. 6 months, these guys have no way to get any kind of drug or any kind of substance, and they feel good and they look good. Some of them got some meat on their bones, and I'm really, really proud of this program. We have a woodworking shop that we've created over there, and I'm very, very proud. The commissioner, Burl Kane, he had a mission and called me up and said, "Can we make it happen?" And so I've been working on it ever since.
So in the woodworking, they're not making like shanks or anything like that, or
No shanks, no
okay, just
shanks.
checking.
No, they're actually making tables and they're making chairs and doing a lot of the
That's
same
cool.
things that Burl had them doing at Angola.
Yeah. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, after I had the cancer, and I was joking about that earlier, but you know, a friend of mine, Keath Warren, his dad died of melanoma, and he and I started a 5K race, and we did that for 10 years. And thanks to Kenny Barraza, who was the plastic surgeon who actually caught my melanoma, that's why I'm still sitting here. He would screen people. And so we would help catch other people with melanomas, which is, you know, I mean, that's my story, is the fact I got caught early. I wanted to pay that forward. But don't you think that if you're dealing with, you know, something like anxiety or depression or anything else, being able to pay that forward, what you're, you know, and to be able to help other people is probably one of the greatest ways to be able to help yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that Wendy Bailey with Department of Mental Health has created is a peer support program. So if you're a peer, if you're someone who struggled with a mental illness and you're on the other side of that in recovery from it, you can be employed through doing a certification training and then be employed by a DMH certified program, be a peer support specialist, which is, you know, just phenomenal.
Any last thoughts before I let you go? Because I respect your time, but I've loved it. It's been a great conversation. I didn't mean to start getting too much into childhood trauma. I just feel like that right now that a lot of kids, between the pandemic, and even though it was necessary, them not being in school, that caused that. I mean, that left a mark on a lot of kids. There's just been a lot of things lately, what they see on the news, school shootings, which, you know, and I even talking to my own children, you know, I remember one time my son was in school and the police car showed up and he's like, we didn't know if it was a police shooting or not. Unfortunately, a young man had, you know, he'd gotten very ill on that. But, you know, at the end of the day, kids have a lot more to deal with than you and I had when we were kids. You know, we definitely, number one, we don't have this following us home. We don't have our phone.
Thank goodness we didn't when we were kids. I say
Yeah.
that a lot. I guess my last thought would be, you know, if you are a child who is struggling with a trauma, or if you're a parent of a child that is starting to show signs of depression, sadness, you know, withdrawal, things like that, there's help for that. And don't be afraid to reach out and get some professional help. There's help all around. And I think that, you know, you've said this before, that if we can treat it early, then we can cause people to not have a DSM-5 diagnosis down the road, and that's going to obviously help them long term.
I've interviewed several moms that have lost children to suicide, and also have friends that have lost children to suicide, and know how incredibly devastating it is for them and their lives and everything. And like I said, what you're doing with SEK and what you're doing with parents and helping educate them, that goes a long way to being able to help kids because a lot of times the kids just don't know how to say, I need help.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you for saying that, Marshall. I'm very honored that I get this opportunity.
Oh no, anytime. I've enjoyed talking to you. Like I said, we probably got a little bit into the weeds, but it was great because I think at the end of the day, the beauty of therapy is awareness. Our brains are incredible gifts from God, but they're also on autopilot, and we can tend to go off in a different direction to save energy. But it can be lying to us, and the fact that what you do every day. And that's why also too, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the goals too, because I mean, I think this is going to be a great year, and it will be a great year if we make it. And I think it's going to be what we make of it. And it sounds like you're well on a good start.
Thank you, Marshall. Well, you have a great rest of the day, and thank you for interviewing me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good talking to you. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.